a Sonic fan, I'm not a Super Mario Brothers fan, and I'm not a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, but these have all had very successful film adaptations. So with Sonic, I thought those films were pretty good. I couldn't get into them as much as fans could, but I found them entertaining for what they were. With Super Mario Brothers, of course, as you know, I felt that film was very inaccessible to non-fans, but of course, there are more than enough Nintendo fans that they don't need anybody else to join the party. But when it comes to this, well, and I think that the past Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, by the way, have been for me more like the Sonic films. I think Sonic is a touch better. But this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, Mutant Mayhem, oh, I loved this movie. I thought it was phenomenal as a fan of genre storytelling. But I think if I was a child, this movie would blow my mind. Oh my goodness. If you know any child, you should take them to this because they are just going to have such a special experience. And not only will they be entertained, but I think it will introduce them to the world of art. Isn't that cool that a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie would do that? Oh, it's so exciting. And for sure, SpiderVerse has had a huge effect on the animation industry, inspiring other animation studios to up their game creatively, both in terms of artistry and camera placement and movement. Exciting stuff. And then also to realize that finally, outside of Asia, adults in the West are now showing up in a major way for animation. We've been talking about this. I think a lot of it has to do with streaming and all the animated adult content that's been put there. And I think it's finally broken down that barrier, which has existed for way too long. It's ridiculous. But anyway, animation in the West, no longer primarily for families and kids. You know, there have always been animation fans. But, you know, this is, like I said, we're really starting to see animation be as much a commercial product, you know, it still is, but also now an art form. And that's really exciting. Now, speaking of varying degrees, Puss in Boots, which was also clearly inspired by SpiderVerse, I think is a slightly more mainstream version of that. But on the flip side, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I would say, is slightly more artistic. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No disrespect to SpiderVerse. SpiderVerse certainly plays up the art of animation, comics, and graffiti. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles dabbles in experimental art. Oh, that's so cool. Reflecting its indie comic book roots and the nature of its protagonists, mutant experiments. The ooze. I loved the ooze. When you see the title treatment, that was one of the coolest things I ever saw at the beginning of the movie. I won't spoil it, but when they have some cool visual effect and then they go into the logo, I was like, oh, that's just genius. The best animated feature Oscar this year is going to be competitive. And Disney, once the animation pioneer, for instance, Sleeping Beauty was considered really ahead of its time, and it did a lot of new stuff in the space. I know it doesn't seem as experimental as these newer films, but you know, Disney used to be pushing the edge of the envelope. And they're getting left behind. I mean, Wish is certainly innovative, right, to a degree. I mean, I haven't seen the film yet, but based on the trailers, it just doesn't seem as bold as what these other animation studios are doing. Although, of course, a major studio like Disney has become, you know, I guess understandably, very risk averse. But they're going to have to get past that if they want to stay a leader in their field. And 2023 is indeed the year of movies based on toys. We've got Super Mario Brothers, Barbie, and now Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And while Barbie does a fantastic job highlighting the personal growth of girls and women, I thought on the flip side, it was really great to see this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shine a light on teenage boys. And also, I think, guys as well, through Splinter. And I thought that was really nice. And fascinating to come so close to Barbie. But to hear the Turtles talking about their hopes and dreams, what they want out of life, was really moving. And their relationship with their adopted dad, Splinter. Not only are Splinter scenes hilarious, but his love for his sons is equally moving. Oh, wow. And he's not just their dad. As I said, you know, his own life journey and what he's thinking and hoping is also explored. And I thought that was really great. I loved it. And I would hope that, you know, everybody would check out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, just as I would hope everybody would check out Barbie. Don't you want to know what people are thinking about? And this is all conveyed not just through stellar animation and writing, we'll get to the script, but first I want to talk about the incredible voice work. Oh, the young actors voicing our heroes do a phenomenal job. And it makes such a difference casting age-appropriate actors for these roles. But keep in mind, very talented young actors. And their scenes, either when I was watching it, I was like, these are either highly improvised or so good they feel like they're improvised. They're that organic. And I looked into it when I was doing this review, and I found out that co-producer, co-writer Seth Rogen did insist on actors recording their voice work together based on some of his past experiences, and also watching these younger actors interact behind the scenes. So they had up to 7 actors recording at a time to get that organic feel and to allow them to improvise, which is different than what's usually done, is that actors record their lines separately and they're mixed together in post. Jackie Chan, as I said, hilarious as Splinter, so well cast. While Ayo Edebiri really shines as April O'Neil. Now, I know that some people have been upset about race-bending April O'Neil, and I put it in quotation marks because I think there's a very valid argument to be made that April O'Neil was originally a character of color in the comics. But really, once you see what the animation team and the script and Edebiri do here, I mean, you should be delighted. I don't see how anyone could have a problem with this character and not just absolutely fall in love with her. The Bear fans know what I'm talking about. She's great here. Ice Cube is also perfect as the very menacing but very cool villain, Superfly. His scenes have a Tarantino-esque quality to them, which I really liked. Such a surprisingly menacing villain for what, I guess could be said. I mean, I think it appeals to everyone, but for a kid's movie, it's cool to see them go that far with the villain. As for other standouts, Paul Rudd is a real scene stealer here. He's so good. And who doesn't love some Giancarlo Esposito? Although, I think he's this close to being overexposed because he's doing so much voice work these days, I just hear him everywhere. And while I couldn't tell it was Maya Rudolph voicing Cynthia Ultron while I watched the movie, I did note that that character had a really interesting voice. I thought there were some cool choices made there. And pay attention to this character because while her role is small, she sets up some elements that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fans will be very excited about. I got one right off the bat, and then the other one, when I was looking into her character, I was like, oh, I see now where they're going with this. There is one extended mid-credit scene, but there isn't anything at the very end. So once you see that mid-credit scene, you can go. So yes, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have been around for a very long time, and there have been plenty of movies based on them. But this one is the most organic and authentic. I never got into the animated series, which itself has had a lot of versions. But I've seen all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies because I'm a movie fan. But this is the first one that I would watch again, that I'm excited to watch again, and that I want to share with other people because, again, I feel it's a work of art. Seth Rogen don't miss, especially when it comes to superheroes and animation. Not only does he have a small voice cameo here, very small. Everybody else in the movie has a very small role. But he co-wrote and co-produced this film, as I said, and it's just as good as The Boys and Invincible, which he's also behind. The script is not just funny and very moving, as I said, but it's also full of tense moments and tons of action. Loved it. And while I didn't like The Mitchells versus the Machines, as some of you know, director Jeff Rowe deserves credit here as well. He's been an animation writer for a while in television, and he co-directed Mitchells. But this is his first solo outing as a director, and I think he's got a very bright future. I could even see him jumping to live action, but he does a phenomenal job. And the score! Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross doing a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie? Glorious. I am getting this soundtrack for sure. There were so many scenes in the movie that were already at an 11, but when the score kicked in, it went up to 12. There was also a lot of 80s and 90s references, not only to the eras themselves, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles during that time, when they were arguably at the height of their popularity. And there were I think there were some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans in my press screening, because they were laughing at some things that I think were specifically Easter eggs and jokes for hardcore fans. But I was just having a great time anyway. I would strongly recommend that you see this movie in theaters. Now, I can't recommend 3D because they showed us the movie at the press screening in 2D. And my rule usually is that if the studio doesn't bother to show it to the press in 3D, that means they don't totally stand behind that version of the film. But I gotta say, based on how cool this movie is, and it already has like a really cool depth of field already in 2D, it could be cool in 3D. So if you've seen it in 3D, be sure to write down below whether or not you would recommend that experience. But the reason I say you should see it in theaters is that the film, it takes place entirely at night. And it like glows. It is so atmospheric. I can't imagine watching this movie in a brightly lit room during the day, out about in the world or at home. So if you do wait for digital or streaming, be sure to turn out all the lights and watch it at night to get that experience. But it's meant to be seen in a theater, and it's good enough that it should be. So that's my review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Share your own thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.